Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and with me today is Shor Denny of Community Now, and we are offering the three C's of social emotional learning: communication, community, and collaboration. Today's topic is going to be trust and trauma as we look at exactly how SEL is working with our youth as the world continues to change rapidly. Rapid change. Sure, as you're looking at our youth, do you see the change in their behavior as fast as the rest of us with your highly trained eye?
Yes, I do. I think we all do. I don't know if we can really pinpoint that they're doing any better or worse than we are, though. I think we're all in this together.
No doubt, no doubt. So to jump right in with it, one of the things that I've been able to observe as we interact out in the community is that our youth, they see bad behavior among our national leaders as we're going through this season. They see a lot of uncertainty with our local leaders. They interact with their school leaders and they're not sure what the next step is. So all of that is literally creating this sense of just being overloaded with a lot of information. In this environment, where do our young people find good examples for the right behaviors?
Now, this is theoretical, right? Because each person's going to find that each youth is going to have this or not have that, right? So each youth is going to differ. But first, it's going to be in your family. The first place you should be looking for an example of how to act or what our responsibilities are in this climate would be their parents, their siblings, their peer group around them is where they would learn what to do and what not to do. What's acceptable.
And I think that really shows an example of a very strong foundation in our youth, and definitely that would reverberate into our community. I think the challenge comes with the confusion that our parents or the parents are experiencing it as well. Whether they're working or not working, that interrupts their routine. In the situations where there's distance learning, now I am mom slash teacher. It was okay when I was mom slash tutor, but now I'm responsible.
I
Go ahead.
There are so many different elements to it, but just talking about trauma and how our youth are dealing with it coming through the pandemic, going through the social unrest and that's happening in our country, then going into the election and coming out of that, when we look at how we're seeing the adults around us, even us adults right now, how we're seeing each other around us, I think that comes into play and can be overwhelming to the youth. They're also on their phones. They're getting commentaries and editorials from their peers, from their sources of information as well. So when you start getting a bunch of conflicting information coming in, and our youth from the age of 12 to 18 are in a stage of where they're trying to understand who they are, right? It's a time of role confusion, and how how they are known or accepted in society, how they are seen in society. Now, while they're trying to figure that out, usually you would have um, a source, a standard source of information, right? A way of living. Your moral code, your ethical code is going to come from this one group. Now it would be monitored as well in school, right? Because it would be reinforcing social norms, the school, how you engage with people and the teachers and all of that authority. Now that's all gone, right? Now they're looking at their phones as a source of information, their parent and small group around them for how to interpret what they are learning.
Mhm.
And they're missing now a large portion of influence that would help filter or hone what they are learning at home.
So they're getting messages, they're getting images, they're getting reinforcement at home, and it's not congruent. And that's creating more trauma for teens than they would normally have.
it continues that state of confusion when we're trying to, as an individual during that time, trying to come out and be independent. They will at some point, of course, continue to develop and be independent, but that moment of confusion will last longer, right? It will be, it could be more of a battle to find themselves, trying to see who they are in society, because they are now more isolated. Um, Physically, not, again, they can get on that phone and they can see what's going on in Europe and Africa, and they can follow people from all the way across the world. But how much impact, I guess, is what we have to figure out, does that have on their day-to-day thinking, processing what they do.
No, that's an excellent point. I mean, I think that international exposure that they have, and really the homogeneity of the exposure when they see their peers on another continent, I think that brings a perspective that our young people they cannot find guidance necessarily from their parents who didn't have that kind of experience. They don't even have a reference point for that kind of exposure. Because we see this even in environments where online environments within a given community where they're using a foreign language to greet each other because their exposure allows that. So that creates opportunities for friction, for trauma. But we don't just stop with what they're doing within themselves. Still have the ability for adults to intercede with regards to how they're going to absorb information. You have your coaches, you have your youth leaders, you have your arts instructors, your your song teacher, etc. And those are people who are still pouring into the growth of our young people. That's an important part of their creative development. But these leaders are confused about how they interact in a virtual world. What's appropriate behavior in such a hypersensitive world with, from a legal perspective? All of these pressures are going on, and the kids are like, no, I just want to express myself, and I need your help to tell me. So my question is, as we look at it from a performance or an arts perspective, who makes the rules now for the kids to follow so that they're able to learn the things they want to learn that reflects them?
I think that the school class, the wall, the chalkboard has been broken, right? Standard school is gone. Where are we now? And how did we get here? Would be through a lot of surveys with parents and teachers and educators trying to understand how to build a model just as close to the model that we already had, but allowing for quarantine really was the thing, and contamination coming back, knowing that we would be susceptible to disease. That is who made the rule, right? Now, because of necessity, I think would be answer. Necessity made the rules. Now, who enforces those rules? That necessity and educators and parents and community members decided were the rules, the social standards that we were all going to live by. Who enforces that is each and every one of us. The parents who teach their children to respect law and to respect health and to respect others, and to believe, that's saying that those parents believe that this disease is catching and that it can kill, and that they do not believe in herd immunity. So those who do not believe in herd immunity are just teaching their children to protect themselves and others. And here's where the conflict, right? Those who do not believe, or who do believe in herd immunity, thinking that this is going to end up like some kind of a flu type of thing, or teaching their kids that you don't need a mask, go get it, like they did when we were kids and they put us in a room with chickenpox, right? One kid got chickenpox, throw them all in there. Well, we learned 30 years later, oops, maybe we shouldn't have thrown them all in there, right? Maybe it was too late. Now everybody in the world got shingles, but when you think about, in pushing an illness onto someone that does not have to have it. I think that becomes a personal decision. And I think that that is one thing that's being guided by the small circle of influence.
Wow. Tell you, that was a painful memory you brought back with the chicken pox, because that was definitely our best thinking many decades ago. Oh man. But as we bring this, back to today, and the point you're talking about is, what is our best thinking? Um, the leaders that are guiding our youth. How do these leaders guide our youth so that they're able to both teach and enforce accountability? I mean, again, we're talking about trust here. How do we get our leaders to guide them? We gotta still bridge that chasm. How do we guide them so that there is trust?
I think it might be a little easier for some of them right now because everybody's standard is broken. Everybody's coming together from scratch, right? So there's almost no one has any competitive edge on the other. So maybe now, because the teachers are now having to deal with COVID,
Right.
distance teaching, teaching with the baby on the hip, right, and trying to do the class now that our educators might be seen as more human. Now that when our educators are in front of our kids, they're into that educator's life by being able to see into their home. These kind of connections were not there that we
Hmm.
have now. It's much more intimate,
Hmm.
the view that we have of the teacher, the counselor that's working with us today. So um, I think that our educators are finding ways, and again, it comes to necessity, how we need to touch and communicate with our youth, and how are the best ways of doing that. And really what I found is that a lot of youth are telling the adults how to do it, how we can
Mm.
do it using this technology. Again, I go to, we're now coming together and being married on technology where even 6 months ago, we were fighting. We had those who hated technology, technology had gone too far, and our babies who are, slurping it in, 24-hour ingestion of
Hmm.
media and technology. And now I think that we are now married to, if not in the middle, I think it's actually gone more toward what the youth are doing, right? Because now
Hmm.
grandma gets on FaceTime. There's habits that have been made in necessity to see each other and to be able to communicate.
I think that is such an important point, how the technology does create that bridge when you allow it to. I think about my young adult children as they talk to their grandmother or their grandmothers, and they'll use social media, and they're incredibly patient when they hit the wrong button and they want to show them how to do it. And the grandmother is just eating up the attention, and there's a bond that totally leapfrogs our generation.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
but back to our topic, I think that is an element that reinforces the trust. Those are lessons that are going across generations that are going to be necessary as our young people get through the pandemic, as they get through varying perspectives on quarantine, and whatever the new normal becomes, how they'll adapt to learning, growing, and ultimately leading the communities that we now occupy.
Because we're going to have some semblance of this, right? We're not going back to
Right.
completely where we were. I don't see us doing that. I think there are going to be too many people that are distrustful of others and
Mhm.
germs for us to go completely back. I think there'll be more tele meetings, teleworking, tele teaching. I don't think all of the youth will go back to school. I think that there's been a shift
Mhm.
in communication in our world, and in that shift, we have to be really careful with the messaging, that we're giving. Thankfully, with our schools, as I said, we're all learning together, those teachers, and when we talk about the trauma of it, we're all traumatized together. The teachers, the principal, the counselors, and the students are all working together in that space to try to understand how we are all going to move forward in this, right? Again, it's we're all kind of equal. Um, so I think that that builds it. And I was in a class, and the student told me that they have their own bond. The youth are communicating. They have set up their own type of network, and they are doing their thing. We don't know what's going on, and we might think, oh, they're not this or they're not, but they have a whole different handle on this thing than we do. And I think they may be even a little more comfortable than we think.
You know, I would think so. I mean, going back to um, when we were youth, realizing that we did have a way of communicating that was outside of what we were taught, but the fundamentals remain that there was communication. If we were going to meet somewhere we shouldn't be meeting, we found a way to get there. And I think our children continue to show that kind of ingenuity even today. And I think that gets back to our topic, the idea of trust. We're going to find that if it's somewhere virtual where we're going to connect, we'll connect. And I think that we have to acknowledge that they're going to find their way of building trust. From an adult standpoint, we have to make sure that the boundaries are in place, but more importantly, that the support is in place so that when they establish that trust, it's done with good decisions and ultimately good outcomes.
And to build that trust, our educators need to understand that it's okay to let the kids know that you're struggling, because the kids are struggling and they see you as a human because you're struggling. So it's okay to be human. It's okay to say, man, today, you guys, can we keep it, respectful more today, because such, don't tell them your business, but, I'm having a hard mental health day. I mean, because all of our youth understand a rough mental health day, right? And our parents are understanding a hard, rough mental health day. So it's becoming a little more, again, intimate and transparent to each other, that we are struggling and we are all trying, and we all have stress burnout. We're all dealing in stress, swimming in it. So as we come in and out of it, we just need to remember, when we're facing each other and when it starts to feel negative, to remember where we are. It's probably not the person. It's probably not even you. It's where we are. Take a deep breath. Don't react. Think about what you're going to do, right? This is a time where everybody's tense. People are ready to jump off. I mean, we see already there are some protests. People are angry. There's a lot going on right now. And that's a reaction of the stress that we all feel. So to not do that, breathe. Understand that when you get upset, that it's a reaction, a natural one of what we are going through right now. Yesterday, I had to take the day. I literally had to take the day, because I was almost like militant, ready to put my little war hat on. And, so we have to take those self-help, self-care things. Take a deep bath. Take a hot bath, right? Relax it. Listen to a book. Put calm on. Go out with a friend. Go over to a friend's house and drink some wine. Do something to de-stress. A thing that I did as well as my bath was I got on a physical game, and I exerted a lot of energy. Right? I pushed out a lot of energy. And that's also good to do, so that you get that stress out of you and you're able to think again. We cannot react right now. We need to make sure everything is planned and that we are safe. So please stay mentally well and use, self-care tips.
That wraps it up. We have issues with trust, we have issues with trauma, that self care, that connection with our peers, acknowledging the fact that there are loved ones who are also trying to navigate this environment, being able to collaborate, being able to communicate, having a sense of community. It's going to be us, and we're going to be okay. The tools are there. let's be mindful of making sure we extend those to our youth as they're developing their skills. And let's get through this together, and let's be ready for a much brighter future. Again, our subject matter expert, Shor Denny, bringing it home and making it very tangible to how our communities will strengthen themselves. And I'm Glenn W. Hunter, 3 C's of social emotional learning: communication, community, collaboration. And in closing, I always want to exhort to each and every one of you, be safe. Thank you.